Christmas morning, 1981. I am 13 years old. My parents have committed an act of chaos that I did not fully appreciate until many years later. They put a television in my bedroom. A television.
A bedroom TV in 81, for a 13-year-old.
I'm telling you, they were either visionaries or they just needed me out of the living room.
It was probably a little bit of both.
I gotta tell you though, I watched Late Night with David Letterman. Okay, this is the thing. It was on, so late night started at late at night, 12:30 in the morning, right? So, but I would watch, I would get dressed for school. I'm not kidding you. I would get dressed for school. I would crawl into bed and I would watch Late Night with David Letterman from 12:30 till 1:30. For years, it got me through high school, dude. For years, that stupid human tricks, stupid pet tricks. It was
Penn and Teller.
Yeah, right? Yeah. All of that. What was it? The top 10 list? I never missed Letterman. For me, and mostly because he was a C student that did well. Yes, I could relate.
I don't know. I'm not yeah. I don't think I could have done that.
Right? So I was 13, right? My moral framework was still developing. The point is, there was something about that TV in my room. It just felt like a portal that had been installed in my house. Someone had cut a hole in the wall. And the other side was everywhere else but Carrick, right?
Yeah. Oh, I don't know. My version is probably the family TV, which, was my dad's, he kind of, took care of that. We had one until much later. We had one downstairs and then one upstairs, right? The one downstairs was this with the big wooden case, and the,
When TVs were furniture.
Yeah, I do remember, Jeopardy at 7:30, and then, there was news and stuff, and there was a lot for my mom, soap operas, and, for me, game shows and things like that. But
nice.
Yeah. So once in a while, it'd be like the golf tournament or something like that, but yeah.
Yeah, well, golf tournaments are sacred text, right? For dads, my dad, you could walk into the living room on any given day and he's watching NASCAR. My dad was a big race car guy.
Yeah, that makes sense. I mean, for me, it was the sacredness of the golf was definitely my grandfather. That was that's the only thing that you saw that in 60 Minutes, right? But, the rest of the time, the TV, sat there in the corner of the room. It was kind of the center of the room. All the sorts of arguments and discussions, sometimes meals in front of it. For us now, definitely, there's kind of times that it's food is in the same place as the TV and sometimes not. It was the fireplace, that we'd actually replaced the fireplace with.
So someone had to build the first one. Some person at some point looked at the idea of a glowing box that could show you moving images from somewhere else and decided to make it real. And the story of how they did it and who stole credit for it, which, my gosh, you know what? How many times have we done this where someone stole credit for things? And how a corporation tried to bury a farm kid from Idaho is one of the most dramatic things that happened in the 20th century. And you know what? I say it a lot, but we don't talk about it enough.
The story's got everything. It's got patents and betrayal. And, I love the World's Fair. So we'll talk about the World's Fair.
A potato field?
Yeah, the potato field is, that's where everything kind of starts.
All right, we're going to get there. So I'm Renee.
And I'm Marc.
And this is the Nostalgic Nerds Podcast.
Nerds Podcast. There you go.
Bring this picture around on my account. My mark. Every 63. Fire the post, latch on, trigger the return, snap back, every line, every field, snap back, do what you're told.
All right, go for it.
All right, here's something strange about how we talk about television. It gets treated like it just showed up one day, fully formed, somewhere around 1955. Right alongside TV dinners and the Eisenhower administration, it materialized in the American living room without anyone having to do anything to make it happen.
Yeah, except it didn't, right? The foundational ideas behind television, stretched back to the 1870s, before cars, before widespread electric light, before the telephone was a decade old.
Well, think about this. People in top hats were theorizing about how to transmit images through wires. And the argument about how to actually do it took 50 years, and it destroyed at least one man's chance at the credit he deserved.
The central concept that everyone was working toward was pretty much the same. If you can break an image into a series of tiny pieces and transmit them fast enough to reassemble somewhere else, you can send a picture. The question is always the how.
And the first serious answer to that question was mechanical. Paul Nipkow, a German inventor, patented the spinning disk approach in 1884. A disk with a spiral pattern of holes in it, spinning in front of an image, scanning it line by line into an electrical signal. And it worked. I mean, it was crude, but it worked. And you could transmit a picture. It was blurry. It was low resolution. It looked roughly like trying to identify a face through frosted glass from a moving car. But the principle, that it was real.
This reminded me of, when I looked at this, it reminded me of when we talked about the film and film tech, the audio, where they encoded the audio in little dark and light bands of, and then shined a light through it. And then it oscillated, it's so totally analog, right? But the early, this early invention, 30 lines of resolution, 30. Today's HD television has, 1080 or 4000 or whatever number you want to use, 8K, right? But the point is it's scanned line by line, top to bottom. It's sort of like plowing a field.
And John Logie Baird took that approach further than anyone. He built a working mechanical television system in the mid-1920s out of things he found in a workshop. A tea chest, bicycle lights, a hat box, darning needles. Oh, by the way, I had to buy 50 of them, darning needles. Am I the only one left on Earth that buys them, but I have to buy them in bulk? He literally MacGyvered the first publicly demonstrated television system at a hardware store, odds and ends.
He's like the OG Doc Brown. And, and it totally worked. January 1926, he demonstrated live moving images to members of the Royal Institution in London. Real-time transmission of a human face.
Which is astonishing, but mechanical television had a ceiling that was baked into the physics. The spinning disc can only go as fast, so fast before it becomes physically dangerous. Again, one more thing that when it's first invented might kill you. The resolution can only get so high before the mechanical precision required becomes impossible to maintain. Baird could tinker at the edges forever and never get past a certain point. And the people who understood that were already working on something else entirely.
Yeah, something with no moving parts at all.
Something that changed everything. And the person who built it was 19 years old and grew up on a farm.
So the piece of hardware that makes all electronic television possible is the cathode ray tube. Not anymore, right? But back then, and the operating.
My one in my bedroom was a tube. When you turned it off, it all shrunk down to this tiny little thing, and then it disappeared. Yeah. Mine was a tube.
I can't even remember the first non-tube TV. I'm trying to remember. It was definitely after Meredith and I were married.
So we had one, it was my grandfather's, it was a projection TV. And so when you opened the K and had a screen behind it, and then it would have red, green, and blue, and it would project it up onto that was the first one I ever saw that wasn't a glass tube. Anyway, go ahead.
Anyways, all right. So the CRT, right? Cathode ray tube. The operating principle, let's go over it.
Let's do it.
Yeah. All right. So you take a glass tube, you seal it, and you pull almost all the air out. Just so it's vacuum inside. At one end, you have an electron gun, which generates a focus beam of electrons and fires it down the length of the tube. At the other end, the inside of the screen is coated with a phosphorescent material that glows when electrons hit it. Now, here's the cool part. Because electrons are charged particles, you can steer the beam using magnetic fields, just sort of precisely and quickly in any direction you want. So you can move the glowing part of the electron impact anywhere on the screen you want.
And if you move it in a controlled pattern across the screen, sweeping left to right, line by line, top to bottom, fast enough that the human eye interprets the result as a complete stable image rather than a moving dot,
then you've got television. No
There you go.
gears, no discs, no moving parts anywhere. Just electromagnetism, phosphor, and, my friend, physics.
The thing I've always found most poetic about CRT technology is that it's using the same perceptual trick as film, right? You're not actually showing a moving picture. You're showing a rapid sequence of still moments fast enough that the human brain fills in the continuity. We are, at some level, completing the illusion ourselves.
Yeah. Persistence of vision. The visual system holds onto an image for a fraction of a second after it disappears. At 30 frames per second, which is what early broadcast television ran at in the US, you never consciously notice the gap. Your brain just decides it's continuous.
Actually, why 30? Was there some magic number, or something magic about that, or is that just it? That was the limit of the technology.
Yeah,
what was that?
It's actually tied to electricity. So the U.S. power grid runs at 60 hertz, so 60 cycles per second. So the engineers picked a vertical scan rate that locked that at 60 hertz and made the frame rate half of that. So 30 frames per second, 60 fields per second. The reason is that any electrical noise inside the television, the mains hum, they would show up as a stationary pattern rather than something rolling across the screen. So rolling would drive you crazy. Stationary, you barely notice. And the horizontal scan rate is 15,750 hertz, which is 525 lines times 30 frames. So every 63 microseconds, that beam swept across the entire screen left to right. Then it snapped back. Then it swept again, line after line, all night long, every set in America.
15,750 times a second.
I did have to do the math on that. So, and it did it in an interlaced order, which is a whole kind of other trick. The beam doesn't draw the whole picture line by line, 1 through 5, 25, and then start over. It draws all the odd numbered lines first. Then it goes back to the top and draws all the even ones in between. So you get 2 half frames stitched together to make one whole frame. 60 fields per second, 30 frames per second, and your brain welds them together into continuous motion. The same bandwidth as 30 FPS, but perceived motion is smoother because something on the screen is updating twice as often. Every one of us watched that trick for decades, and probably, none of us knew that.
No wonder we were all so exhausted. We really do live inside engineering compromises that we never actually stop to think about, I think.
Did you ever get really close to the tube, and stick your head, your head right there and your eyes? And yeah, I did that one too many times. Yeah.
No, but I do know you had to fine tune it, right? It would get wobbly or it would get, you would have to fine tune it though. Yeah.
That's what the song for this week is all about, which is funny.
Okay.
Anyway, so there's one more piece of it that I really like, which is the vertical blanking interval. The beam has to get from the top of the screen back to the top before it can start the next field. That retrace takes time. So during that time, the beam is blanked. It just turns it off. Nothing is broadcast. Nothing on the screen. It was empty airtime holding inside every frame of every broadcast. And that empty airtime got exploited later for things nobody watching had any idea were happening. Closed captions wrote inside of that, teletext in Europe, time codes, data services, whole side channels of information tucked into the pause where the beam was moving. If you ever saw the picture roll on an old TV and there was a black bar between the frames, that was the vertical blanking interval and you could just barely see it.
Humans are extremely easy to fool. But it's totally a theme in human history. We're just boneheads. We're boneheads.
We are boneheads. Yeah, it's definitely a recurring theme.
Okay, so the technology exists as a concept. The question is, who actually builds it first? Philo Farnsworth. Okay, he should be everyone's personal hero. Philo Farnsworth.
Yeah, he should be everyone's personal hero for sure.
Taylor Farnsworth, born in 1906 in a log cabin in Utah, raised in Idaho, one of those child prodigies who read scientific journals at 11 and spent his teenage years rebuilding electrical equipment in the family farm. And in 1921, at 14 years old, he was plowing a potato field in Idaho. He was cutting furrows back and forth, parallel lines across the entire field. And he looks back at what he's done and he sees it. The image, scanned line by line. The electronic television system he's going to spend the next decade building. Remember, he's 13, right?
Yeah.
Like, he's going to spend the next decade building this.
He was plowing dirt.
Right? Inspiration comes from everywhere.
Yeah. So he draws it out for his high school chemistry teacher, a guy named Justin Tolman, right after he plows this field. He drew it on the blackboard, explained the whole concept, and Tolman took him seriously, engaged with it, and remembered those diagrams in detail.
And those diagrams and Tolman's memory of them became legally divisive evidence years later when a corporation tried to take everything Farnsworth had built and claimed it as their own. Yeah, but we're getting ahead of ourselves because first, Farnsworth actually built it.
Yeah, so September 7th, 1927, Farnsworth is 21 years old, working in a lab in San Francisco with investors he'd spent years convincing to take a chance on him. He transmits the first fully electronic television image in history. The image is a single straight line.
No spinning disc anywhere in the system, no mechanical components, pure electronics, start to finish. He was 21 years old when he did it.
Yeah, so he tells the investors, there you have it, electronic television. Just like that, composed, like he hadn't just changed the world.
And now we get to David Sarnoff, who's fascinating and infuriating figure because he was brilliant and he was a visionary and he used every single one of those qualities to crush an inventor who had beaten him fair and square.
So, man, you just want to, the underdog here. So Sarnoff was the president of RCA, the Radio Corporation of America. Boo. He had the little dog,
Yeah, boo.
Boo. He had built it into the dominant force in American communications by understanding something that pure inventors often miss, which is that controlling the infrastructure matters more than any single device. How many times have we said that?
Right. Well, how true is that about AI?
Yeah,
right?
exactly.
Don't sell this. Don't go digging for the gold. Sell the picks and axes. Yeah, go ahead.
That's right. So so RCA obviously had done it with radio, and Sarnoff had been saying publicly since the early 1920s that television was going to be the next platform he intended, to own.
RCA had their own television research team. Vladimir Zworykin, a Russian-born inventor, who had filed patents in the 1920s for an electronic camera tube and a picture tube. And the historical record on his early patents is murky because there was a substantial evidence that what he filed did not actually describe a functional device. Fun with patents. Like I think something like this could exist one day. I'm gonna file a patent for it so that somebody else develops it, I get the patent, right? We still do it that way, by the way. This was more theoretical architecture than a working system.
Yeah, the patent described a concept. Whether it described a device that actually operated the way the patent claimed is something historians and engineers have argued about for decades. The short version is probably not, at least not at the time of filing.
So in 1930, he makes a visit to Farnsworth Labs in San Francisco. He's framed as a fellow researcher, a collegial scientific exchange. Let's just talk about it. I'd love to see it. I'm going to come stop by. Ugh. And Farnsworth's team shows him everything, the camera, the display, the entire working system. Zworykin reportedly looked at Farnsworth's camera tube for a long time, and he called it beautiful. Can I just tell you, that's probably what Elon did with that car. He probably looked at it a long time and thought, that's rad.
And within a very short window after that visit, RCA's research program made specific targeted progress on the exact problems they had previously been stuck on.
So the bomb was not the first time the Russians pulled a fast one on us. I just want to put it out there, right? That's a remarkable coincidence.
Yeah, very convenient.
Sarnoff then went to Farnsworth directly and offered to buy his patents for $100,000. In 1930 money, that was real. It was also obviously a fraction of what Sarnoff believed the technology was worth. Farnsworth says, no. which is one of my most favorite moments in technology history because it was the right answer. And he had every reason to take the money, and he didn't.
Yeah, and Sarnoff responded the way powerful corporations respond when someone won't sell, which is to file patent challenges claiming that RCA's technology predated Farnsworth's and that Farnsworth was the one that was infringing.
Yeah, that's a move that relies entirely on having more lawyers than the other guy. And
Yeah.
RCA did, right?
It's such a dirty tactic. Yeah.
Right. Right.
Patent trolls. RCA had essentially unlimited legal resources. Farnsworth had his investors and, a chemistry teacher.
His chemistry teacher, who had remembered diagrams drawn on a blackboard in 1921. In 1934 and 1935, after years of patent proceedings, the United States Patent Office ruled in Farnsworth's favor. They found his documented work predated RCA's claim, and the key inventions of the electronic television were legally his.
Yeah.
Good for him. 24 years old. He legally owned the patent to TV. Yeah.
And for the first time in RCA's history, the company paid royalties to an outside inventor. They had always been the ones collecting, and now they were writing checks to a kid who had grown up plowing fields in Idaho. You got to wonder if that tactic you worked for them before. If they were the ones that were always, collecting royalties rather than paying royalties, like who else did they squash?
Oh, yeah, like tons of people, right? Like, do you think RCA's lab invented the radio? I'm going to go with, no.
We know that it didn't, right? We know that it didn't.
Right.
Yeah.
And still it wasn't enough because the war came. Commercial television was essentially shut down from 1942 to 1945. Farnsworth, yeah, that's true. Because whenever you think about like 1940s, everybody's huddled around a radio again listening to, like no one saw images of the concentration camps. They heard people describing the images.
They had the short reels that played it at the theaters.
In the movie theaters, right. Yeah. So Farnsworth patents had a 17-year window from issuance. The war ate right through the middle of it. By the time the television became a mass market phenomenon in the late 1940s, his most important patents were expiring. I love when it happens to drugs. Like, I love when drug companies lose their patents because then generics get to show up. I'm feeling bad right now for Farnsworth. Like, that's not fair. Like the arc of human history is about to screw him. Yeah. He never got to build the business his invention deserved.
And the name most Americans associated with television, if they associated any name, at all, became Sarnoff or, RCA. Sometimes Zwark, and Farnsworth was largely written out of the story for decades. Poor dude.
I hate to admit it, but my stupid black and white TV that I watched Letterman on every night was an RCA. It was an RCA black and white. Yeah. I feel bad about that now. I was helping the man. He's been partially rehabilitated. There's a statue of him in the U.S. Capitol. His story's been told in documentaries, but for a long time, the official count of how television happened left the person most responsible for it out of the story.
I'm going to have to go through and edit all the RCA-ness out of here, right? Because they're going to come, we're like...
they're going to come after us with a club?
Yeah.
Like they still matter. Okay.
So, how many times have we talked about this? Technology history is full of this kind of thing. The person who actually did the thing and the institution that ended up with the credit are different people.
So Philo Farnsworth invented television. I want that on the record every single time we have this conversation. Philo Taylor Farnsworth. You, sir, were a genius at 13. Good for you.
All right. So we have the invention, right? We have the legal drama. Now the commercial television is actually happening. The 1939 World's Fair in New York is where the American public gets its first serious collective look at television as a real thing that is going to be in their homes. RCA has a pavilion. Oh, the pavilions. I wish.
You loved the World Fair.
I know. Yeah. I wish, Sarnoff gives a broadcast speech calling television a new art, and sets go on sale.
For $600, which is somewhere around $10,000 to $12,000 in today's money. So extremely accessible to everyone. It's a grassroots rollout. Right. I'm being facetious. If I ever saw one.
Holy cow! $600. Like, ouch. Whatever. Yeah. See, they should all that royalty money that they'd be paying. It's
right.
Yeah. Then the war happens and everything stops. Factories that would be making TV sets are making radar and military equipment. Commercial broadcasting scales back to almost nothing, and the future gets put in a drawer for 4 years.
And when the war ends, the pent-up demand for this is volcanic. 17,000 TV sets in the entire United States in 1946. Just 17,000. We have 4 million by 1950, 30 million by 1955. That growth rate had no precedence in consumer technology history. Like, not even the iPod pulled that one off.
Yeah, it's a lot. Yeah. What drives it is not just the technology, it's the timing. Post-war economic expansion, suburban growth, rising middle-class incomes, and a housing boom producing living rooms that needed things in them.
And what I think people underestimate about that moment is how quickly everyone realized what they actually had. Advertisers understood within about 5 hot minutes that it was the most powerful sales device ever created, because it wasn't like radio where you imagined the product. You didn't have to imagine Ovaltine anymore. Like, you could see it. You could watch it being used. You could see a little kid, swirling up the Ovaltine in a glass.
The chocolate
you could watch
dust.
it smiling, right? Smiling up, holding it up, drinking it. You felt something. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. I love those old commercials, man. They're so awesome. The human visual system is tuned to pay attention to moving images. That's an evolutionary response. Movement meant something was happening. Food or predator. Television exploits that response just completely.
We spent millions of years developing finely calibrated survival instincts and then built a device that redirects them toward a soap dish, right? Or toward Ovaltine, or toward, cereal with a decoder ring in it. You know what? It really did make us soft. It's almost admirable, I think,
The other thing that changed fast was the architecture. Furniture got rearranged. Room layouts in new housing construction started being designed around where the TV wall was going to be. For centuries, the focal point of the main room in a home was a fireplace, the hearth, the thing the family oriented toward.
And within a generation, the TV replaced it. Not metaphorically, but literally. The chair arrangement changed direction. Yeah, it's totally the way it is in our house. Like, there's a giant TV on a wall and all the furniture is pointing at it, for sure.
Yeah. The thing you gathered around changed, which changed what you gathered to do, which changed what felt normal.
Something about early television that doesn't get enough attention. Almost everything was live. Not live in the sense of a special event. Live in the sense that there was no other option. Videotape didn't exist as broadcast technology until 1956 when Ampex introduced it. Before that, if you wanted to air a show on the West Coast 3 hours after it aired on the East Coast, you either performed the whole thing again in the studio live with the same cast and crew,
which some shows actually did, two complete live performances one night.
Or you did something that sounds like a technical fever dream, which is that you pointed a film camera at a television monitor showing the broadcast, recorded that onto film, then developed the film real quick and shipped it across the country. That recording was called a kinescope. It's why so much archival early television footage looks terrible. You're actually watching a film of a TV screen showing a live broadcast. Like that's the West Coast, simulcast. That's it right there.
Ugh.
I'm going to use film to tape the live broadcast.
Isn't that nuts? That's just nuts.
That's crazy. That's crazy.
And then literally putting it on a plane and flying.
Right. That's like faxing something now. You'd be like, why? Yeah. Amazing.
Multiple generations of quality loss stacked on top of each other. Grain on top of flicker on top of contrast loss. Oh, man, some of that early kinescope stuff is so bad.
Yeah, it's really bad. And the consequences of all of this is that early television was deeply, profoundly ephemeral. It happened and it was gone. And a lot of broadcasters decided there was no reason to preserve kinescopes. Storage costs money. The silver in the film could be reclaimed and stored. Whole series. Like, we're probably lucky we still have some of these, shows like The Twilight Zone, right? Whole series got destroyed.
Yeah, entire genres of early television, live drama especially, which was considered some of the most sophisticated work being made in the 1950s, is mostly gone. Shows that ran for years exist now as 2 episodes and a fragment.
which is heartbreaking because we think of television as the medium that preserved the 20th century. It's the archive, it's the record. And its earliest years left almost nothing.
Yeah. Early television was structurally more like theater than film. It performed, it concluded, and then it disappeared. And what shaped that shaped what kind of content thrived. Live variety shows, sketch comedy, drama that worked in real time without an editing safety net.
As a former actor, I got to tell you, that was the heyday. Like, that was television as theater, right? Like that any actor who loves their work, loves their work, would say, I would love to do live TV. That would be crazy. That's why Saturday Night Live is so fun. And color arrives. And the color television story is one of my favorites because it's the perfect illustration of how corporate power can override a better technical answer just by having more lawyers.
More lawyers. Yeah. CBS had a working color system before RCA. Their approach used a spinning color wheel in front of the camera and with a receiver with segments of red, green, and blue synchronized to a specific broadcast signal. And it produced beautiful images, vivid, saturated color that looked impressive, even by later standards. Okay, yeah. I have seen some of this stuff. It's really cool. And it actually, some of the technology made its way into film, which is, it's really cool stuff, but oh well.
I hear my dad talk about it. He's like, you used to buy this filter and put it up in front of the TV, and the top was blue. The middle was like yellow and the bottom was like red. And he's like, but when you weren't looking at a landscape, that meant the top of Walter Cronkite's head was blue.
Yeah.
Right? So the FCC evaluated it in 1950s and approved the CBS system as the American color television standard. And then guess what happened? RCA sued them because they can't help themselves.
RCA's argument was that CBS system was incompatible with existing black and white sets because the signal format was different. And that's true. But RCA's objection was also very conveniently timed with the fact that they were finishing their own fully electronic color system that would be backward compatible with existing sets.
So they were simultaneously correct about the incompatibility problem and completely self-interested in raising it.
Yeah, both things were true at once. And RCA went to manufacturers, they went to Congress, they went to consumer groups, and they made the case that CBS standard would make millions of existing sets obsolete overnight. And that's true. Like, we just talked about the numbers. You're talking, what was it, 30 million sets or whatever?
Okay, but that's the whole point of Silicon Valley today. Like, disrupt and make everything else obsolete. Like how did we change our mind there? I digress. Go ahead.
Yeah. It's not a great message for an industry that had just spent a decade convincing everyone to buy a television, though. That's the point.
And it worked. In 1953, the FCC reversed course, rejected the CBS system. My God. And adopted RCA's all-electronic standard instead, developed by the National Television System Committee.
It's known as the NTSC. But, okay, when you said that, I've been on lots of standards committees, and you can tell which standards committees are stacked and which ones aren't, right?
Yeah, right? Yeah.
This one was stacked with RCA, so, yeah. Anyway, so NTSC, which lasted as the North American broadcast standard until the digital transition in the mid-2000s.
50 years, one corporate fight locked in a color standard for 50 years.
Yeah.
It's crazy.
And it was not beloved by, even the engineers who worked with it. NTSC stood for National Television System Committee, but the running engineering joke was that it stood for never the same color, because the color calibration was notoriously difficult to maintain and varied across receivers.
Yeah, okay, why? What was actually so hard about it?
So 2 problems at once, right? The first is the hardware side and the second signal side. So the hardware side is the color CRT itself. The color picture tube has 3 electron guns instead of 1, each aimed at its own color phosphor of the screen, red, green, and blue. And between the guns and the screen is a piece of perforated metal called a shadow mask, with hundreds of thousands of tiny holes in it, machined to align exactly with the phosphor pattern. Each gun's beam only reaches its own color because the shadow mask blocks it from reaching the others. You get the alignment wrong by a fraction of a millimeter and the whole image goes fuzzy. Manufacturing that at consumer scale, millions of sets a year, is one of the great forgotten industrial achievements of the 20th century.
3 guns, 3 colors. all landing in the right place.
Yeah, so that's the hardware side. The signal side is where NTSC gets, kind of clever. RCA needed color, but they needed it to work on, the 90 million black and white sets already sitting in American homes. Broadcasting a black and white set couldn't decode would have obsoleted their entire installed base overnight. So they kept the black and white signal exactly as it was, a signal called luminance, which carries brightness. Then they hid the color information on top of that signal as a modulated subcarrier at a specific high frequency. A black and white set doesn't know what the subcarrier is and just ignores it. A color set has a decoder that pulls it out and reconstructs the color.
Okay, so they fight that it's not backwards compatible, and then it's not backwards compatible. So one broadcast...
It is backwards compatible. It is,
No,
yeah.
come on. So you're just ignoring the color. Like that, what? So one broadcast, I guess both TV sets are happy?
Yeah,
Sure.
yeah. They were smart about the encoding itself. The signal separates brightness from color, called YIQ. It's brightness. The I and the Q are color. So broadcast Y at full bandwidth and I and Q at reduced bandwidth, because the human eye is far more sensitive to differences in brightness than to differences in color. You crush the color resolution and nobody notices. You do the same to brightness and the picture falls apart. So they gave brightness the bandwidth and squeezed color into whatever was left.
Yeah, we just don't see color that precisely, right? I always say, like, when my husband buys a TV, he's like, look at that picture. I'm like, you know what? The lowest common denominator in this entire experience is my eyeballs. So I'm not sure why we did this. Like, honest to God, like, I don't know why we do it.
Yeah, so the trouble with this process here is that the color subcarrier used a phase reference to figure out which color was which. Any phase drift shifted the colors. So green trees become blue, if you've seen that before, right? Skin turned
Right.
orange, right? And the phase reference was easy to disturb. Long cable runs, mistuned equipment, weather affected the broadcast path. Any of it could shift the phase and shift the color palette. That's why every television had a tint knob. You sit there and you turn the dial until faces look human again. Or you just bang on it, hoping that makes
yeah, you smack on the side of the TV. Oh, it's so good.
Yeah, every set's slightly different. Every broadcast is slightly different, and hence never the same color.
Meanwhile, the Europeans watching the whole NTSC mess unfold from a comfortable distance developed their own standard called PAL. Of course they did, which addressed several of the technology weaknesses. So let me just say, after somebody else figures it all out, they're like, we can build a better mousetrap. Oh, I hate that too. The PAL engineers, who had clearly been waiting for their moment, referred to PAL as perfect at last. Oh.
Yeah, international television standards drama, right? It's surprisingly deep.
You know what? Everything runs surprisingly deep once you look at it long enough. That's all I'm going to say. So here's what I keep coming back to when I think about television's actual legacy. The television did not arrive in a neutral way into a neutral world. Every decision that shaped it, who owned the patents, what the broadcast standard was, what got funded and what got made and who got shown on the screen was made by specific people with specific interests. And those decisions shaped what an entire civilization understood to be real.
I don't even, you can't understate it, right?
Right.
Yeah, the power of setting the default. Whatever appears on television becomes the normal. The range of things shown defines the range of things that exist in the public imagination.
The Kennedy and Nixon debate of 1960 is the example historians reach for because it's documented and it's measurable. People who heard it on the radio totally thought Nixon won. People who watched on television definitely thought Kennedy won. The difference was that Kennedy looked at ease. He was tan, relaxed, made direct eye contact with the camera. Nixon refused to wear makeup. He was visibly uncomfortable and looked unwell under the studio lights. To this day, people will say, don't go all Nixon on this. Like, don't sweat and don't look shifty, right? Like, politicians today think they have the Nixon debate in their own head when they're doing that.
He had the 5 o'clock shadow going on, and it was he looked shifty. He looked shifty. Yeah. A presidential election, in part, decided by whether someone looks sweaty on camera. That's how powerful this is.
That's how powerful. And before anyone feels superior about that, I'd note that every political consultant and media strategist since 1960
Right.
has built an entire profession around the implications of that one night. That one night, we understood what we were dealing with, and we leaned into it completely. Instead of calling it out like it was, like, yeah, okay, some people just looks better on TV. And the other thing is, like, the bigger your head is, the better you look on television. Like, if you have a giant head, and I say this to you as an actor, if you have a giant head, and I do not, I wear child-size hats. Like, I have the perfect head for radio. But, like, if you, like, a giant head, like, makes you look good on TV. I bet if you saw Barack Obama in person, you'd be like, my God, that man's head. Like, Ben Stiller has a huge head. All right. So instead of saying this is ridiculous, why are we doing this? Like, people are people and who cares what they, nope. We said you got to look good on TV or we're not going to vote for you. That is crazy.
I wish we had the same sort of rigor around social media and, how impactful it is.
Right.
So, yeah. Anyways, all right. So
pretty sure those influencers don't have giant heads. Well, they do have big heads, but not in the way that's helpful. Go ahead.
All right. So the other event, the moon landing, the other moment that I think most clearly shows what television was actually capable of at the highest register. July 20th, 1969, an estimated 600 million people around the world watched Neil Armstrong step onto the lunar surface in real time. Well, the delay from the moon and there and everything. But
right.
a live broadcast from another world, grainy and strange, barely legible footage, but real and shared.
That's probably one of those things where they were taking a picture of a picture, too. That's why it's so grainy, right? Like, they were like, we're going to broadcast this. So they held it up to a monitor at NASA, right? There's no precedence for that. Singular events happened throughout human, history, battles, discoveries, moments that changed everything. But they were experienced locally. Like, Farnsworth's teacher experienced an earth-shattering moment that no one else got, right? It's only the people physically present. The moon landing was experienced simultaneously by more than 500 million people on Earth.
Television created a shared human moment at a scale that had simply never existed before. And to be honest, like, that level, that kind of magnitude, I'm not sure it's been, shared since.
We've done it since. Yeah. And Philo Farnsworth watched it. He sat in his home in 1969 and watched the thing he had imagined at 14 in an Idaho potato field transmitted to the surface of the moon through the electronic television system he had built. He reportedly turned to his wife and said, well, this made it all worthwhile.
Oh, yeah. And then he died 2 years later.
Oh, for Pete's sake. He got to see where it went. He got to see the full distance from that field to the moon. And I find that almost too much to think about just directly, right? Like, seeing your baby, a 500 million people, watching that.
That's quite the achievement. There's another side to the legacy that I think is equally important to name, though. Television also brought Vietnam into the living rooms in a way that no previous war had been experienced at home. It made the civil rights violence visible to people who might have otherwise looked away or remained unconvinced. It carried the assassinations of the 1960s into people's homes as they happened and made national grief into something that was experienced in real time, together by everyone with a set.
I'm going to say royal weddings probably do the same thing, right? Everybody all over the world will get up in all hours of the day and night to watch royal people get married. I don't know what that's about, but we do it. Television didn't just and I just wanted to, Kate and William, I got up in the middle of the night.
I did not know.
She looked stunning. Like, of course, I wanted to see that dress. Taylor didn't let me. So thanks a lot, Kay. Television didn't just cover the events that shaped the 20th century. In a very real sense, it determined which events mattered, how people processed them, and what they demanded in response. The history of the civil rights movement is inseparable from the history of what television chose to show.
And what it chose not to show, right, for a long time in terms of whose lives were treated as real and worth portraying.
Well, which brings me to fragmentation. Because the other major chapter in television's legacy is what happens when it stops being a shared experience. One set per household, 3 channels, must-see TV, Thursday nights on NBC.
Yeah.
Like, come on now. Everybody watching the same thing at the same time. And that was the early model. Cable changed it. Cheaper sets meant more sets per household, and one in the bedroom for, a 13-year-old named Renee. And suddenly the communal viewing experience started to crack. Because I'll tell you something, my dad thought David Letterman was an idiot. I'm sure if he was watching stupid human tricks, he'd be like, this man's an idiot. I fractured from my family with my weird sense of humor, and then it just got spoon-fed to me every night, by David Letterman, right?
The shared moment where the whole country had watched the same show and could talk about it because everyone had seen it started to dissolve as audiences fragmented across hundreds of channels. And then streaming finished the job because now you could be completely outside the cultural conversation if you chose different content on a different service.
That is me all the time. I don't watch scripted TV anymore. So here's the thing for me, when the 3-camera format and the live audience went out of favor for sitcoms, Renee's attention to sitcoms kind of went with it. Because that was the fun thing about a sitcom, like Friends, recorded in front of a live studio audience, right? There was something about that even though it was edited, even though they did 150 takes, didn't really matter. That audience still laughed every single time, which is crazy, right? So there was something missing from that. Newhart, remember that show Newhart? I don't know if you remember it, but so we go through years of this show with Bob Newhart running a bed and breakfast in Maine or whatever it was.
Yeah.
So we go through that over and over and over. And at the end, the very last moment of the very last episode, he wakes up in bed and turns to his wife from the original Bob Newhart show in the 70s and says, I just had the weirdest dream. That right there. And a whole country sat and watched that. And the next day we all went to work and said, oh my God, did you see that? It was just a dream. And it was 7 seasons of a dream, right? So my Christmas TV was the beginning of that. I thought it was freedom. And you know what? And it was, but it was also the start of something that ends with everyone consuming totally different content in separate rooms, and the shared reference point and the shared reality, those are both disappearing.
Yeah. That pattern, a shared communal experience, becoming personal experience, becoming solitary experience. That's the arc every screen technology follows. Television did it first and most dramatically, but it was the preview of every subsequent chapter.
And the fireplace became the family TV, became my bedroom TV, became the laptop, became the phone, right?
Yeah.
Each version more personal, more tailored, more solitary. And at some point, we stopped gathering together around any of it. Okay, time out. So The Apprentice was one of those things where people would watch it and the next day would come to work and say, did you see who Trump fired? So when anybody's wondering why that man fits the zeitgeist or the brain space of Americans, it was literally 15 years of, did you see who Trump fired? And it was crazy, right? That really was a cultural moment we would all sit around. Again, must-see TV. We all watched Seinfeld.
Yeah.
We did all that stuff, right? And I think, you know what, you can look at Game of Thrones and say that was another one where people, met it where it was. A lot of people, not everybody has HBO. Me neither. And I know Dothraki. Can I just put that out there? I know Dothraki and I've never seen an episode. I just learned it to be a jerk. Yeah. Okay. Anyway, at some point, go ahead.
But, and this isn't really on the tech side, but, the way broadcast worked changed. Right, the pricing models changed, advertising revenue changed. All of that drove a different type of programming. So, The Apprentice was one of those TV shows that was cheaper than 3-camera, sitcom, that had been running for several years, right? So it changed the whole reality TV thing.
Yeah, that changed it, right? Because now I don't have to pay actors. They're lines, but it's improv, and we're just going to film people doing it. Survivor's one of those too. What season are we in? 25, 26?
Who knows?
Survivor's one of those things where, it kicks off this idea that I don't need real actors, I just need real people. Which I don't know.
I will say that television at its best, though, was doing something that none of those other technologies have kind of fully replicated. There were moments of shared cultural experience, shared witnessing and feeling that the media made possible in ways nothing else could.
Television at its best was a mirror and a window at the same time. You saw yourself reflected, and you saw out into lives and places you would never otherwise have access to. And the story of who got to be on that screen, whose lives were treated as worth showing, is the story of how culture slowly expanded its idea of who counts.
It's a long story with a lot of steps backward for every step forward. But it's a real story. The medium had real power to change minds, and it used it, sometimes badly and sometimes beautifully.
It all started with a spinning disc with holes in it, and a kid looking at parallel lines he plowed in a field, and a corporation, shame on you, RCA, that tried its hardest to make sure the world forgot his name, Philo Farnsworth. I will never forget you.
And fortunately, Renee, the world didn't forget.
The world did not forget. There's a statue of him. I don't see a statue of the RCA dog anywhere in Washington, D.C., or maybe I'm not looking hard enough. I don't know, probably not.
I don't know. I'm sure there's probably a statue of the RCA dog and at the RCA radio music, whatever in New York.
There you go.
Yeah.
There you go.
Yeah. All right. Okay. So what does television mean to you actually? Not historically, just, to you.
Yeah, honestly, my answer is embarrassingly specific, right? It's the feeling of being 13 years old in my bedroom at 12:30 in the morning,
Yeah.
fully dressed for school and under the covers with the TV turned down low. So I, practically had to lip read, right? Watching something I was absolutely not supposed to be watching because that man was an idiot. And feeling like I was getting away with it. I was like, I'm getting away with something. This is covert, crazy stuff going on in my room. The world had a secret layer, and I found it by accident. And the television, that was the door, man. That was the door that gave me my sense of humor, I wrote for Forrester Research for 10 and a half years. If you ever saw my first draft, you'd think I was a comedy writer. It all got edited out every time, but I did not stop putting jokes in because it was just I'm a comedy writer, I think. All of that kind of influenced me in an extreme way.
Yeah,
Way.
That's a very specific kind of joy.
Right? It's the joy of unauthorized access to a larger world. And I think that is exactly what television gave a lot of people, right? Especially people who lived in places where not much was happening, especially kids who didn't have the resources to go anywhere. You could turn it on and suddenly you were somewhere else. You were on Sesame Street, right? That stuff where you were watching someone else's life, where you were watching the moon. You had access to things that would otherwise have been completely out of reach.
Yeah, for me, it's more, I don't know, Saturday morning cartoons.
Schoolhouse Rock.
It's a special time in history, right? When, Reagan deregulates some of the ways that television works. And then all of a sudden kids become the target audience advertisers. So, yeah, it's not.
It's a perfect answer, though. So TV gets deregulated, but in the 1970s, it was regulated into this idea that you could show Saturday morning cartoons to Mark if that's what you wanted to do, but you had to balance that. The FCC required every television station to balance that with educational television. Now, there's no chance a kid would sit there and watch educational television. We weren't suckers, right? We weren't, right?
I like educational television.
I know you do, but most kids didn't. And so they tried to it's the advertising council, the ad council. All these different advertisers reach out to the ad council and say, you do this. And the ad council thought, well, all right, maybe we'll do cartoons. And with that, we had, announce a special kind of word. It's the greatest thing that you ever heard. It's quite interesting. Announce a person, place, sort of thing. So we got Schoolhouse Rock. And Schoolhouse Rock is why I know American history. It's why I know grammar. It's why I know Interplanet Janet is a galaxy girl. All of that stuff. And you know what? Your answer is, it is sophisticated, right? In the 1970s, they tried to target kids for advertising. The government said, I don't think so. You're going to target them for education if you're going to do anything. And then here comes Reagan, the free market champion, saying, you don't have to target anything any way you want. It doesn't matter. I'm not going to be the nanny state. And then we lost our nanny. And it became a really weird thing. It's a perfect answer, Mark.
Yeah, I mean, for me, it's I was, I was right in that age range, 7, 8, 9, 10, whatever, at the beginning of the 80s. And the content that just started showing up en masse, it was a completely different set of content than it was, just a few short years before that. Today, I was literally wearing a Dungeons and Dragons t-shirt with from the 80s cartoon that showed on, CBS or whatever,
Yeah, that's way too nerdy for me. I remember Laugh Olympics, Hanna-Barbera Laugh Olympics, where they took all the characters from all the different cartoons and made them compete in an Olympic. Yeah.
See, I remember that, but that was old. When I was a kid,
we watched that for real.
I was like, oh, that's old. And I like Schoolhouse Rock, but Schoolhouse Rock was old already. It was dated by the time I was, watching Saturday morning cartoons on ABC or whatever. So
that just shows you that Mark's quite a bit younger than me. There you go. Well, so if you guys were ever wondering.
I don't think so. Okay, well, there's some difference, right, in age, but it's just enough. There's this narrow window, and if you fall on one side or the other, your experience with television is different.
Yeah, that's true. I mean, you have kids now that don't know anything about broadcast TV. They only know streaming.
Nothing. They don't know nothing. Yeah. So anyways, but for me, that was television, kind of that total freedom, right? Saturday morning before anybody woke up.
Well, television gave you a space that was just yours. Yeah.
And it was made possible by, that kid from Idaho looked at furrows in a field and imagined that you could send the whole world through a wire.
And he built a window and put it in everybody's house. And the fact that he barely got credit for it is one of the ongoing injustices of, technology history. It's like Steve Jobs inventing something and then, Jeff Bezos taking credit for it, and we're all good with that. That's terrible. But the window exists. It's been transmitting light into living rooms and bedrooms and hospital waiting rooms and bars and airports and places of grief and places of joy for 100 years. And that is real. And it's regardless of who got credit for it.
Yeah. Philo Farnsworth built a window out of potato field.
And we've been looking through it ever since. All right, you guys, that's our episode. If you learned something today, if you laughed at something, if you're going to go directly home and look up Philo Farnsworth, it's Philo if you're interested, on your television, because we do that now, which is the correct and extremely ironic thing to do. We want to hear about it.
Yeah, find us wherever you listen to podcasts. You leave a review if you enjoyed the show. Tell someone who'd be into this and actually look up Farnsworth. He deserves the attention.
And tell us your television memory. The first thing you remember watching, the show you watched until the tape wore out. Okay, so talking about tape. For us, it was The Stuntman. It was the first videotape we ever rented, and we must have watched it 550,000 times. Right now, Chuck said the stunt pay $1,000. Forget, we still have all the lines, right? So anyway, the TV that was in your room when your parents either trusted you or needed a break, I want to hear it. I want to know all of it. Reach out.
And if anyone else had a bootleg VHS of a Disney film before it was legally available for home viewing, Renee has been waiting 20-something years to find out if she was alone in that. Yeah.
It was for if you had two VCRs that you could hook together with a cable.
Yeah.
And you know what? I was not alone. I refuse to believe I was alone. It was just the precursor to stealing HBO at the poll. It was just.
Yeah, definitely not alone statistically.
And we should all be friends, right? I'm Renee.
And I'm Marc.
And this has been the Nostalgic Nerd Podcast. Go watch something.
Yeah, just maybe not, for 6 hours.
No, don't listen to him. 6 hours is fine. Go watch something.
Binging is okay. Yeah.
Right? We're not your parents. And guys, until next time. Thanks, Marc.
Latch on. Trigger the return. Snap back. Every line, every field. Snap back. Do what you're told. Picture's still on the run. Frame rate's coming down, so carrier drifts to blue. Fringe on every edge, sync pulse coming late. Every 63 we're gonna bring this picture around on my count. On my mark, every 63. And now, snap back, fire the pulse, latch on, trigger the return. Snap back, every line, every field. Snap back, do what you're told. Locked to the line, to the field. Sync poles coming in on time. Face clean, no drift. Snap, fire, latch, return. Every 63, pictures back on track.